I covered the first movie and shattered some childhoods, at least the comments certainly suggested as much. Then I did the second movie and you all came back for more. So welcome back to the series that apparently made some of you feel personally attacked. Now I do apologise for that. For the record, I absolutely adore these movies. I grew up on them just as many of you did. This isn't hate and I want to be clear about that. I'm not bashing the movies at all, they're cinematic masterpieces within their own right. I'm simply covering the accuracy of the dinosaur depictions, being as, for many of us, myself included, it was the first real introduction to dinosaurs. In this video, we're closing out the original trilogy with Jurassic Park III, the 2001 entry that gave us new lore, new apex predators, and a whole new level of paleontological chaos to unpack. We're not going back over certain topics like the raptors, we've already been there and frankly, they are franchise-wide issues as opposed to being Jurassic Park III issues. What we are going to do, however, is dig into the specific dinosaurs that this film introduced or spotlighted and hold them up against what we actually know today. Let's start with the big one, because it is genuinely fascinating and I want to be fair about it. Spinosaurus is positioned as the new apex predator. Bigger than T-Rex, faster, more aggressive and fully terrestrial and bipedal. It kills the T-Rex in the opening act and caused a collective aneurysm in the paleontology community and sparked arguments that are still ongoing between fans today. Here's the thing, in 2001 the Spinosaurus design wasn't actually as outrageous as it looks today. The fossil record at the time was frustratingly incomplete, teeth, vertebrate fragments and those iconic neural spines. The skull shape used in the film is actually closer to Suchomimus more than true Spinosaurus, and even Billy mentions this in the film, which is a really nice touch.
Suchomimus. Snout.
But, broadly speaking, a large sail-backed bipedal theropod wasn't an unreasonable interpretation with what they had at the time. Over a decade later, however, our view has changed. A new, far more complete specimen described by Nizar Ibrahim completely rewrote what we thought Spinosaurus was. It had short hind legs, dense bones suited for movement in water, a long paddle-like tail, and nostrils positioned high on the skull. This was not a typical land predator stalking prey across open plains or through jungles. It was a highly specialised, semi-aquatic animal that likely spent much of its time hunting in rivers and shallow waterways. The JP3 Spinosaurus pursuing people relentlessly through dense jungle and functioning like a giant terrestrial super predator, that is now considered extremely unlikely. Its narrow conical teeth were adapted for grabbing slippery prey like fish rather than for crushing bone or killing other theropods. The idea of it wrestling a Tyrannosaurus to the ground in direct combat is still heavily debated by fans today, but realistically, these animals were specialised for completely different environments and prey. Obviously, we can't know for certain how such an encounter would go, but personally, my money's still on the T-Rex. To the film's credit, they got caught by the science moving faster than anyone expected. Now, to the film's detriment, even in 2001, many paleontologists already suspected Spinosaurus was primarily a fish eater. The body was understandable for the time, but the behaviour was so much harder to justify. Now, the Pteranodon sequence in the aviary is one of the best set pieces in the entire trilogy. It is also scientifically rather painful to watch from start to finish. First, Pteranodon means toothless wing. It is literally in the name. The Jurassic Park III Pteranodons had teeth, rows of them. This is not a minor oversight, this is the film ignoring the animal's most defining characteristic and its namesake. Second, these Pteranodons pick up humans with their feet, carry them away and drop them into nests to feed their young. Real Pteranodon anatomy simply doesn't support that behaviour. Their feet were not specialised for gripping and carrying large struggling prey the way modern birds of prey are. They were lightweight flying animals built for soaring, not airborne kidnapping. The film accidentally demonstrates why this would be a terrible strategy anyway. Modern predators generally avoid bringing large prey back to vulnerable young because a struggling animal can seriously injure them, which, in fairness, is exactly what happens in the scene. Third, the film's Pteranodons are completely naked and scaly. Real pterosaurs, including Pteranodon, were covered in hair-like filaments called pycnofibers. We have excellent fossil evidence for this. Some of these structures may have even been feather-like in complexity. They would have looked fuzzier and far more animal-like than the leathery reptilian creatures shown in the film. Fourth, the wingspan and carrying capacity is wildly exaggerated. A real male Pteranodon had a wingspan of around 5 to 6 meters, which is impressive, but the aerodynamics and muscle mass required to actually lift and carry a full-grown adult human just simply isn't there. Now, I'm aware that kind of fits into the second point, but I thought it was worth its own. Ankylosaurus appears briefly, but there's a morphological issue worth flagging. The JP3 version has prominent spikes running down its sides, which is a really persistent mistake in popular depictions of this animal. That body plan is much more typical of nodosaurids, the close relatives of Ankylosaurus. Ankylosaurids were better known for their heavy armour and massive tail clubs, while nodosaurids often had the dramatic lateral spikes people tend to associate with all armoured dinosaurs. Media constantly blends the two groups together, and it's genuinely muddied public understanding of both. Ceratosaurus gets about 30 seconds of screen time, so this one's really quick. It shows up, smells the big pile of poo, decides it has better places to be, and then leaves. Completely understandable if you ask me. The problem, however, is with its skull. Ceratosaurus had a much more distinctive appearance than the film gives it credit for. It possessed a prominent nasal horn, smaller brow horns, and a skull shape that looked noticeably less tyrannosaur than what we see in JP3. The film's version looks thick, heavy, and overly robust, almost like a generic large theropod rather than Ceratosaurus specifically. It's a small nitpick, but Ceratosaurus had one of the most recognisable silhouettes of any Jurassic predator, so it's a shame in particular that they flattened those unique features down. In the previous video where I looked at the Lost World, I mentioned that the Sorna ecosystem was probably unsustainable. Jurassic Park III actually expands the dinosaur population, and the problem gets worse. The island now has Spinosaurus, an entirely new colony of raptors, multiple large theropods like Ceratosaurus, and an entirely new T-Rex, Pteranodons, and huge herbivores all apparently thriving together years after management collapsed. Realistically, maintaining stable populations of that many massive predators on a relatively small island would be incredibly difficult, especially long term. Of course, it makes for great cinema, but ecologically speaking, the film is definitely not asking us to think too hard about it. Jurassic Park III is the scrappiest film in the original trilogy. No finished script, a production that was being written in real time, and a clear sense that everyone was making it up as they went. And somehow that chaos produced one of the most entertaining dinosaur showcases in the entire series. It's just a shame that it was probably the least accurate as well. The Spinosaurus is the most interesting case study of the whole franchise because it shows exactly how fast our understanding changes. In 2001, it was a fairly reasonable interpretation, but by 2014, it was a completely different animal entirely. That's not the film's fault, that's just paleontology doing its thing and our understanding evolving over time. But the Pteranodon having teeth, that one's kind of inexcusable. It's literally in the name. But there we have it. We've covered the entire original trilogy, and science has a lot to say, but regardless of any of the inaccuracies, they're amazing movies and I will never stop watching them, and I hope that you don't either. If I missed something, and I'm sure some of you are already typing, please do let me know. If you've made it through all three of these, then thank you, genuinely, it means the world to me. Hit like and subscribe if you want me to continue into the Jurassic World era, because trust me, there's plenty more to get into with those films. But until then, stay curious.